What's up, dog fans? Another Georgia-Florida game is in the books. 2020 has been a crazy year for all of us in some form or fashion, and this game was no different. If you watched the game last night, if you were traveling and listened to it on the radio, or you looked at your social media after you missed the game and slept all night, you found out that, yes, we lost. Georgia did lose, first time in several years that we lost to the Gators. And the game, as far as the game goes, it is what it is. I don't know what to say anymore. The quarterback situation is just abysmal. There's just nothing you can say as far as the player that was starting versus the backup versus the players that are on the bench that allegedly or supposedly are not good enough to overtake DeJuan or Stetson. It's just, the whole thing is just confusing, and us as fans, we're just done with it. We just don't know what else to say. So I'm not going to harp on it today. But what I do want to talk about is the receiver situation. And over the last couple of years, we've had some of the media, specifically the Georgia Bulldog football media, different media outlets. You had these certain reporters that harped on, even last year when Fromm was the quarterback, and the year prior to, we had some receivers and they left and went to the NFL. And so last year, the excuse was we had all these receivers leave, and so now we have these young receivers come in, and specifically the two biggest ones being Pickens and Blaylock. And so now we don't have any experience at receiver, and it's their fault. It's not Jake Fromm's fault. It's not the play caller's fault, which that play caller being Coley, who's now since left and is at Texas A&M. But as far as the receivers go, then we had this year, we had a nice crop of receivers come in. We had Justin Robinson. We had Jermaine Burton. We had Marcus Rosemy Jacksaint. We had Arian Smith out of South Florida. So we had a nice crop of receivers. They all have their own talents per se. They all their own skill set per receiver. They're not all the same. But and before I go any further, let me just say my thoughts and prayers go out to Marcus Rosemy. It's just sad, man. The kid's first collegiate touchdown, and he gets breaks his ankle, breaks his lower leg, whatever, when he was hit in the leg by one of Florida's DB at the goal line. And gruesome play, man, and we just wish all the best for him and his recovery, and hope that he gets back at it soon. This kid, you may not know, but he is a super hard worker. Marcus, along with Jermaine Burton, were two of the incoming receivers this year at UGA that I really studied. And the reason I got to study them is because they did a lot of year-long training that showed up on Instagram and YouTube, whether it be the training academies they were at or whether it be just their off-season work that they put in on their own. There was a lot of that footage out there. So fans like me could go and look at it, and it really motivated you to see these two kids coming in with this much passion for the game, and then to get to see them both start as freshmen. You know, Burton's been starting since the first of the season, and now Marcus, with Pickens being out, he's been able to start. And so it was just a sad thing to see that happen last night, man. But I wanted to harp on the receivers a little bit today. That was my goal. Receivers and a little bit of the tight ends. Let's get the tight ends out of the way first. Tight ends. 2 passes thrown to tight ends yesterday in the Florida game from the UGA quarterbacks. 2 passes. One to Fitzpatrick, wide open. He drops it. One to Darnell Washington. Not as open, but he drops it. That was the 2 plays. Our other tight end, Trey McKitty, graduate transfer from Florida State. Reception numbers are out there for you to see. You know that he was a very productive player and wanted to play in a big-time league, SEC, came to the SEC. And me as a fan, I just hope that he solely came to Georgia to learn how to block, because that's all that's going to happen with him at Georgia. Unless something changes over the next few games or the remaining games, he's going to be a blocker. He was open on numerous occasions yesterday, and the ball was not thrown to him. Even some of the commentators noted it and said, pointed out that McKitty was wide open and was never seen by either Stetson or Mathis when he came in the game. Neither one of them could get the ball to him. Now, was that by design, or was it because they just didn't see him? I don't know. But I personally feel bad for the kid, man. I feel bad that he made this life decision. We all know, as adults, life decisions come and go, and they're not always easy. but he chose to transfer from Florida State and come to UGA. And I just hope that the NFL scouts that watch him are watching his footage from Florida State and seeing that the young man can catch the ball. He can catch the ball. And if they watch the footage from his time at the UGA, or this year, his one sole year here, they're going to see that hopefully that he can block and the kid will get drafted where he belongs to be drafted. There was some predictions that he may be the top, at the time, prior to the season starting, he may be the top tight end taken in the NFL draft coming up in 2021. Now, what happens now, who knows? We've seen a lot of good tight end play around the entire country, much less the SEC, with Florida specifically, with Pitts. So we'll just see how that goes for McKitty. Now, as far as the 2021 recruit class coming in, we've got Brock Bowers coming in. So Georgia continues to be able to recruit these elite or higher echelon tight ends. This is a kid that's a tight end from, or hybrid tight end from Napa, California. I think last time I looked on 247 Sports, he was like the third rated tight end in the nation. So we're hoping that the kid can get here and that we can get him developed. You know, I think back to Isaac Nada when he came out of IMG, 5-star recruit, one of the top 1 or 2 tight ends in the nation. Of course, now he's in the NFL. He played with Detroit, and he's not a full-time starter, but it just has me concerned that we never developed Nada like he should have been developed. Now, he had some big-time plays at Georgia. We know his blocking ability. We know his catching ability, but it just don't feel like he was utilized properly. Now, our recruit this year that came in, our tight end, Darnell Washington, and we've had a couple since Nada, but as far as Darnell goes, Darnell's seen a lot of playing time. This is another big fella, man, 6'7", 6'8", blocks well. We've seen some of his videos go viral as far as his blocking and how he just he throws people around at times. For the most part, the balls that have gotten to him, he's caught them. But he's had a lot of bad passes thrown his way this year, specifically by Stetson. You got to call it like you see it. That's what you see on film. So we hope that Darnell doesn't get discouraged and that he continues to progress. But back to the receivers. You know, I was saying over the last year and some of this year, I heard these reporters say from week to week that our receivers need to do a better job. Our receivers need to learn to get open. Our receivers need to fight to help our quarterback out more. Well, let me tell you, don't listen to me. Don't listen to them. Turn on the tape for yourself. Try to find a game that's recorded. Try to find some footage of Georgia football from this year, and you will see our receivers fighting to get open. You will see our receivers running proper routes, running the plays, hopefully that they were given to run, and executing them properly. Now, we've had a few drops. You're going to have drops. But we've had way more passes that never made it to the receiver, either being in the ground, over their head, out of bounds, whatever. So this situation with the receivers just really got to me, and I just felt as if I needed to bring it up. This abysmal quarterback play is the problem with the receivers. It's not the receivers' fault. Now, as far as receivers in the future, none of us can predict what a recruit's going to do or how he's going to perform, but let me just bring something to point. The 2021 class, early enrollees can come in January, a couple months away. I went on 247 Sports. 247 Sports, the top composite rankings for wide receivers. I looked at all the players, all the position groups, but wide receivers specifically because this quarterback play can hurt Georgia in the future, the quarterback play that you see on the field now. You have to go down 61 players. So the top 61 receivers in the nation, you have to go down to 61 to find a recruit committed to Georgia or that the crystal ball for 247 Sports predicts them of going to Georgia. One player, and that's down to 61, and that kid's name is Adonai, however you pronounce it, Mitchell. He's a 3-star recruit. Now, we know 3-star recruits can be developed, but that's neither here nor there. The thing about it is that we knew there wouldn't be a bumper crop taken this year because of last year, but you would have thought Georgia would have tried to get 1 or 2 wide receivers a little higher ranked than that. And nothing against that kid. He could turn out to be all world. But just to make a case in point, you got these schools that just keep reloading at these positions. Let me just make a point. 247 Sports again, and I don't get paid to mention them. That's just one of the sites that I use to track recruits. Out of those top 10 wide receiver recruits for 2021, 3 of them are either committed or the crystal ball is to Alabama. 3. 2 are to Ohio State, 2 to Oregon, 2 to LSU, and 1 to Oklahoma. Now we know all of those schools, all of those football programs are going to put the ball in the air. They're going to attempt to get their ball to their receivers. Now LSU, of course, we know what happened last year with Joe Burrow, and that offense just flourishing. This year they had a total reload, including with the quarterback, so they've had to adjust. But we know that these offenses, Bama, Oregon, LSU, Oklahoma, Ohio State, they're going to attempt to get the ball to their playmakers, i.e., a lot of times, the receivers. And it just concerns me as a fan that Georgia, you have to go down 61 spots to find one. Now back to Brock Bowers, the tight end. He could play at times maybe a hybrid position with that tight end role because of his size and speed, but he's ranked 3rd in the nation. So that's good. That's a positive thing. But this thing with these receivers, man, really has me concerned because we just don't have them. We're just not reloading. You would think that we could have more coming in. 1 or 2 a year would be feasible. But yet this quarter, you wonder how much of it plays into these recruits looking at this Georgia quarterback situation all the way back to when Smart got here. You know, with everybody that's been through here, you know, and I just talk back as far as, you know, recently as far as Eason, but with Eason and Fromm and Fields and now, you know, Stetson went from a scout team player to the starter, but yet it just doesn't, we can't make heads or tails of it. And every time we watch or listen to a press conference or a radio talk show, we just hear something else and it just doesn't matter. All I can say is I'm not going to talk about JT Daniels no more. And I don't know how I got on quarterbacks, but let me finish. I'm not going to speak on him anymore after right now unless we see him in a game. If the kid came from California, Mater Dei High School, USC, started when he should have been a senior in high school, he reclassified, played at USC, had multiple 300-yard games against Texas, against whatever. The thing about it is this kid isn't good enough to beat these other players out. Gatorade Player of the Year. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is if that is the kid, if Smart and his staff looked at this kid's film, talked to people, which we know they did or we assume they did, and then we got him here and said, oh man, his knee's worse than we thought, and he don't throw quite as well as it looks like he does on tape. He doesn't get the ball to the receivers. He doesn't make good check downs. He doesn't go through his progressions. Well, then, like I said before, I'm cool with that. If that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. If Stetson Bennett, as a walk-on, is the best quarterback that Georgia has, then it is what it is. It's just sad, man. It's a shame that with the way Georgia recruits at other positions, with our record, you know, what we've done on the field, you know, a lot of teams would be glad to have Georgia's record. Would love to have their bowl appearances. You know, Sugar Bowl last year won against Baylor with players missing. You know, they would love to have that record or those experiences. But it just frustrates fans. And you can't tell me that some players aren't finally getting frustrated. I listened to the 2 interviews after the game yesterday, one with an offensive player, one with a defensive player. The one with the offensive players was Rosemy Jacksaint. The defensive player was with Eric Stokes. Some reporters, which that's a whole nother story. Some of these reporters, I don't know where they came from. They're good at what they do. That's why I'm not a reporter, I guess. But they finally asked a question, but they should have asked it of Smart. They asked it of Rosemy Jacksaint, you know, several questions about the quarterback situation or quarterback play during the game. And Kyrus, on 2 occasions, deferred those questions to Coach Smart. And he specifically said, I'll let Coach Smart answer those questions about the quarterbacks. To me, that says a whole lot. That doesn't say that he's a kid that doesn't want to answer a question and he was uncomfortable. No, that's an aggressive kid, man. He would love to tell you what's exactly on his mind, but he probably knew it wasn't in his best interest to just comment on the quarterbacks when he's a wide receiver and that's all he can comment on is his play personally. But I give him kudos, man, for going out there like a man, and they sent him out there, and for facing the media and for answering some tough questions. And hats off to Rosemy Jacksaint, man. He played a good game as far as I'm concerned. Had a great touchdown catch in the end zone, and hats off to Rosemy Jacksaint. But this quarterback situation is going to affect our ability to recruit wide receivers. Now, you may jump on me and say, well, how do we get those, specifically those 4 that I mentioned earlier? How do we get those 4 top flight recruits last year. We have to remember our receiving corps was decimated. I mean, it was decimated. There was no big names coming back, with the exception of Pickens, who had a great freshman year, and Kearis Jackson, who was injured in and out his entire career at Georgia. Those were the only two big names. We still had Matt Landers, still had Tommy Bush. We still had Micaiah Tongue from Louisiana. There's other receivers on the roster. And let me give one shout out. Let me give a special shout out to my man, Braxton Hicks. I bet you 95% of you Georgia fans don't know who Braxton Hicks is. Braxton Hicks, wide receiver from the upstate of Georgia, one of the high schools up there. I don't want to mispronounce the name, so I won't say it. But he's a walk-on. This kid's a tall kid, good looking as far as his pass catching ability. But he walked on to Georgia, man. He loves the Georgia Bulldogs. I see his posts all the time. I mean, it does nothing for him just to post a video on Instagram of him in a Georgia uniform. He just loves the Bulldogs. But I wanted to give a shout out to him, man. That kid's probably playing scout team wherever they ask him to play, and I hope one day to get to see him on the field. But these recruits, man, we hope that we can continue to recruit these kids, man. I mean, we're just worried. This quarterback situation is just terrible, and until they get it figured out, it's going to continue to haunt us in some way. And everybody's saying, well, we can just win out now. We don't control our own destiny because of Florida, but we can win out and hope for the best. But that's not guaranteed. Missouri's going to be a scrappy team. South Carolina's going to be a scrappy team. You just never know. You never know what's going to happen. We're assuming Mississippi State and Vanderbilt's just going to roll over, but this is 2020, man. You just don't know what's going to happen. So anyway, that's my spill on the receivers today. I would have loved the game to go on a different way, but you could almost see the writing on the wall when you saw all these weeks leading up to it, and then all these reporters telling us, oh, it's just we're just laying back waiting. The offense is going to explode, or Stetson's going to get the job done, and he really just played good, but only a few interceptions. I get tired of hearing all that stuff. And I'm not making these videos to slam Stetson Bennett. He's played to the best of his ability. That kid got smashed yesterday, went to the locker room, got his shot or whatever, came back and begged to get back on the field, and they put him back out there. And that says a lot about his tenacity, his composure, his willingness to do whatever for the team to help him to win. And so my hat's off to him, man. I'm not here to critique him, but you have to look at the film. You have to look at the results, and the results are what they are. We saw it, and we weren't just chewed up on offense. The defense has been chewed up for several games. We know we had all these injured players, and I just hope that they all get healed up. Not for football's sake, but for life's sake, man. We just hope that they get healed up and don't have any lingering injuries as a result of these plays, man. I'll cut it off here, but I want to say that I'm here to support the Dogs. I hope all the fans continue to support the Dogs, man. These are great kids that play on this football team, great staff that support them. I'm not going to slam the coaches. I'm not going to specifically mention the coaches, but I have faith in the coaches. I have faith in Kirby Smart, but I don't know about this quarterback situation. I've got faith in Matt Luke. I've got faith in Cortez Hankton. And, just those are coaches that I know that have been around a little while. Matt Luke with the offensive line has done a great job. Yesterday, we didn't have any major snafus. There was some questionable snaps, but that's nothing new this year. But as far as Todd Monken goes, I think our play calling. I actually like our play calling. I think it's great compared to last year. I know he's trying to use the talents of the players that he has, but we just hope that they continue to make progress. And it's just sad, man. You don't want to see your season end like this, and it's not over. The season's not over. But the reality that Georgia's expectations are up here. It's not like another team where you expect to be mediocre, and if you win a big game, then so be it. And also something just popped up. Let me give a shout out to Sam Pittman, man. He's got those Razorbacks rolling. I miss Sam Pittman here at UGA, and I'm proud of what he's doing out there at Arkansas, and I'll continue to root for him and his program, except when they play the Dogs, of course. One more thing, if you're wondering why I'm wearing this winter hat today, because it's cold. Man, it's cold up in here. This Georgia quarterback situation is ice cold. Wim Hof couldn't even survive around this Georgia quarterback situation. And you ask who Wim Hof is? Googling. The man climbed Mount Everest with a t-shirt and shorts on. Go Dogs.